Well, it's been a long wait, but it's finally almost over. The super pre-release for the One Piece card game is almost here, and so here is your definitive guide to the event. First things first, if this is your first time hearing about a super pre-release tournament, know that it may be a little bit too late for you. This is a super limited event running from between the period of September 30th to October 6th, with each tournament being run only being able to have up to 8 participants. But don't give up hope just yet until you've checked. Call up to all your local game shops, any that you can reach, see if they have any spots left for you, and if they say they do, make sure you lock it in. Say, I'm coming, lock it in. Don't have them just put your name down because they might be just gauging interest and then they overbook it, and then you turn up and it turns out there's already 8 people here and you're too late. So lock that in. So what is the super pre-release and what makes it so super, aside from Frankie? Well, as I noted, it is in the beginning of October that it's being run, whereas the actual full game doesn't release until December. So that's a fair chunk of early access time. But there's more to it than just the exclusivity of being early. Each participant will buy one of the 4 starter decks, and that will come with an alternate art for the leader card, which will be different from what the normal release will end up being. And that will have a stamp on it saying Super Pre-Release. While the original versions of the leaders that you will normally get after the set actually launches have a manga art style, these old arts have the style of the anime. Personally, I like the look of the Super Pre-Release anime style better than the original versions with the manga style on it, but even if you do prefer the manga style, it's still worth getting these. You're going to want to buy a second copy of the starter deck down the line anyway once the actual set releases, so you can get play sets of all the cards that only have 2 copies of it. Playset in this game is 4 copies, and so you'll get the original art for the leader when you do so. But these old art anime leaders are going to be much harder to come by because they're only available during the Super Pre-Release. And the tournament's pretty limited as it is. So these cards are going to be worth a lot of money if you're interested in selling them. Perhaps you could get them graded, and down the line, when the value has appreciated a little bit, collectors who like to spend too much money for these things probably will pay a lot for them. Now, not only is the leader card pre-release stamped, but so too is the entire deck. This information dropped just in time for me to include into this video, and previously it was thought just the leader cards were stamped, so this is a nice little bonus that adds to the prestige of this super pre-release version of the starter deck. I can't say for certain going off this image if every single card in the box will be stamped or if it's just 1 copy per card, but at this point I'm going to assume it is every card in the box, and that even includes the Don cards. By the way, don't forget to bring sleeves to the tournament. You're going to have to play with these cards, so if you want to protect them, sleeve them up. And if you want to get the leader card graded, like I mentioned, bring a top loader. So put the leader card in the top loader, and that will completely protect it as you play with it. In this game, it's fine to have your leader card in a top loader. It's always on the field, so it's not a complication as far as the rules go. In fact, once you do have it graded, you can just play with it in the slab. In addition to the decks you will be playing with, the stores will be receiving enough stock to sell you the other decks, so you can get more of these old art leaders. I'm hearing conflicting things about how many of the decks you can buy though. Going off what it says on the website, it sounds like you will be able to buy all 4, only 1 of each, and unless they don't sell them all and then there'll be stock left over that they can sell to you. But I've also been hearing that the rules will actually be you can only buy 2 decks, so the one you play with and then 1 extra. It may depend on the store, so my advice to you is bring enough money to buy 4 decks, but don't be too surprised if it turns out you can only buy 2. So you also get promos for participating. You get 1 of the pack that has the first 5 promos in it, and you also get an extra copy of the Luffy, but in an alternate art. And then the winner of the event will be the proud owner of this Luffy alternate art promo number 1 stamped with winner of Super Pre-Release. A highly valuable collector's item indeed. The fight to win this event is no doubt going to be intense, so you're going to want to prepare yourself as best you can if you want to come out on top. Make sure you know the rules first. If you don't already, search One Piece Card Game on your app store of choice and download the tutorial app. I recommend proxying up all the decks and or getting on to Tabletop Simulator and practicing as much as you can. Deck choice may help give you better odds, however you need to be aware that you may not be able to get the deck you want if it does turn out that there is only enough stock for each player to buy two. So that would mean each store, or the store in particular, would only have 4 copies of each deck. So that's enough for each participant to buy one and then one extra. So if 5 or more people in this situation want the same deck, one of them's going to miss out. And there is consensus among the community that a certain deck is better than the others, so that certainly could be the case. More on that in a second. So if we can't guarantee that we get the deck that we want, it will be very useful to be fully aware of what all the other decks do and what their strengths and weaknesses are. But first, let's go over some general tips that will apply to all 4 of the decks. Some cards have counter power and some don't, so you're going to want to manage those cards carefully to ensure that you can stop an attack with counter when you need to. If you want to play a character card and in your hand you have the choice between 2 similar cards, one that has counter power and one that doesn't, play the one that doesn't, and therefore you'll have the option to counter with the other one from your hand if you need to. Weigh the decision of playing a card with 2000 counter power carefully. What's going to be worth more to you down the line? That character on the board or having 2000 counter on one card in your hand? Save your blockers for attacks that are too big to counter out of. Trading one card to stop an attack is much better than trading 5 from your hand. When attacks are smaller, you can counter out of those ones, but save the blocker for the bigger attacks. Maximize and be efficient with your Don. Plan out your turn before you do anything so you know how much Don you'll need to play your characters, and then attach the rest to your cards that can attack, leaving as many as you need active to use when countering on your opponent's turn, but don't attach all of the Don to the different cards all at once before you put in any attacks. Do them one by one. Attach and attack. Attach and attack. Keep your opponent guessing instead of just laying it all out in front of them. Okay, digging into the decks now, and I'll start with the Straw Hats. Luffy's ability is to attach a rested Don to himself or to a character. This ability is great for getting extra value from your Don, allowing you to both use it to pay for a card and then still boost a card's power, making it easy to get in strong attacks every turn. The Straw Hats deck is a little bit light on character cards that have counter power, with only 2 2k counters and 24 1k counters. It's also light on event counters, we've only got 2 copies of Guard Point. Chopper is the only blocker, but you get 4 copies of him. Jet Pistol is your removal, and that's at 2 copies. The strength of this deck is its ability to play aggro with rush cards and its ability to attach rested Don cards. Weaknesses to look out for though are that it ends up kind of having small hand size. It has no cards in it that can draw or search the deck. It also has the least amount of counter power across all of the starter decks. If you are playing it, you want to close out games fast, and conversely, if you are facing against this deck, your best bet is to hold on and wear it down. Nami is great. She is my go-to turn 1 play. If she's not in your starting hand, use your chance to mulligan in hopes of fixing that. Honestly, I think this card will be a staple in red decks for a while. Once per turn, she attaches a rested Don, just like the leader card does, so you'll get to double up on that power. The 1000 Sunny unfortunately only comes in at 2 copies in the base starter deck, so it may not be consistent that you'll get to play it every match, but if you do see it, play it. It boosts one of your cards 1000 power a turn. Sanji gets Rush with 2 Don attached, which is doable turn 2 if you played Nami turn 1. Rush is this deck's advantage, so you'll want to lean into that. And Luffy, of course, is your strongest card, also has Rush, and with 2 Don attached, he can't be blocked, making him a good move to win the game with. Worst Generation is going into this tournament as one of the favourite choices. Kid's ability is certainly one of the reasons for that. At the cost of 3 Don and then 1 card discarded from your hand, he can be switched back to active mode. So you could be going for game. Attach 7 Don to him to make him 12,000, And if your opponent survives that attack, you can just pay the cost, restand, and attack again. This deck has 4 2k counters, 30 1k counters, and 6 event counters. 6 blockers all up, 4 of the 1 cost Gang BG, and 2 of the 7 cost Kid. And for removal, Killer has an on-play skill that hits 3 costs or less, and he's at 2 copies. This deck is well balanced. It has a good amount of attack and defense, and its ability to attack twice with the same card is as good as Rush, if not better, as said card can have Don attached and then make use of that power boost twice. Lack of removal may be a weakness. Killer only hits 3 costs or less, though you do have Straw Sword, which will rest one of your opponent's characters, and then you can attack that. Jewelry Bonnie plays for 1, and then you can pay 1 to rest her and then search out a Supernova. This kind of card is always valuable, helping you find your pieces. Of course, now that she's rested, she will be open to attack, but at the very least, that's 1 less attack that your leader card will take. Trafalgar Law. On play, will set one of your Supernovas back to active mode, letting it attack again. And then Kid is your big boy, a blocker with 7,000 power, and if you attach it on, he can attack, and then he will stand back up ready to block at the end of your turn. And X-Drake is good value, powering up your whole board. Taking advantage of Kid's ability to restand, as well as Law's ability to restand a character, will win this deck games. And when you're playing against Worst Gen, save your blockers for when it looks like they're ready to go for game. Remember that they only have the 2 copies of the Killer, and that can only kill 3 costs or less. But also remember that they do have Straw Sword, so that can rest one of your characters. So if possible, leave your blockers in your hand until it's necessary to have them out. The 7 Warlords is a more defensive deck. Crocodile's leader ability I see more as a last resort than anything else. He has cards doing the same thing as that ability at arguably less cost. -4 Don will return a 5 cost or lower to its owner's hand. This deck is a bit lighter on the character cards in place of having more event cards. So you got 2 2k counters, 26 1k counters, and 6 event counters. Blockers are aplenty though. We have 10 blockers, and then there's 14 cards with removal. So yeah, fair to say this deck has a lot of defense and a lot of removal. These are strengths, but it comes at the cost of being lighter in terms of attack. This deck is at its best when it's controlling the game, removing problems and always being able to defend. But if it's going up against the Straw Hats, don't rely on blockers as that deck can get past them with Loopy and with Diable Jambe. To play against the Warlord deck, you'll need to remember that your board isn't safe. Attack when you can at all times to try to wear out its defenses, and try to trick them into wasting their blockers and go for game when there's none left. Key cards in this deck are on the defense front. There's Crocodile, the blocker, and he also has a little bit of removal in it. And then there is Love Beam, which will also draw you a card if you have 3 or less in hand, which will hand you a little lifeline if you're at that point. Sables is great removal, and that's what I was referring to when I said there's better options in this deck than the leader ability. And then there's Doflamingo, who is a strong card with strong removal. Animal Kingdom Pirates are all about ramping and minusing Don. Kaido's ability is one that is used for going for game. -7 Don to trash the top card of your opponent's life. Use that on their last life, and then get that last attack through. The deck has 4 2k counters, 28 1k counters, and 4 event counters. Black Maria and Queen are the blockers, adding up to 6, and then there are 8 cards with removal. This deck is built around ramping Don, so it has an advantage of being able to play strong cards, but it also has a lot of minus Don abilities, so if sequenced incorrectly, or if you don't find enough of the ramp cards during the game, it can end up not having enough Don to do what it needs. The longer the game goes, the more it swings into Kaido's advantage, and so too, if you're playing against it, try to win the game quick before it can hit you with the -7 Don burn ability. And to protect yourself from that, try to keep yourself at 2 life so Kaido has to do more than just burn a life and then attack once. Most important card for Kaido, perhaps, is Onigashima. Get that on board, and then everything opens up to you to be able to do your minus Don without putting yourself at disadvantage. Brachio Bomber is great in that it's removal and it also ramps. Ulti is the 2k counter, and normally I'd say be conservative with playing it, but she has the ability on play to bring out a page 1 with her, so that can be more valuable on the offense. And Kaido is big at 9 cost and 10,000 power, but he kills something and then he gains rush, so big value. That's about all I've got to say for the decks on this video. It can only take you so far, so like I said at the top, I would recommend that you proxy up all the decks and keep on practicing them if you're determined to win the day. Hopefully this information can help you in your Super Pre-Release tournament, and may you be successful in obtaining the One Piece, and by the One Piece I mean the winner stamped card. Good luck, and if you want to learn more about the game as we get closer and closer to the actual release of Set 1, Romance Dawn, make sure to subscribe. At the moment, I'm going through all of the archetypes in the Set 1 meta and analysing them, so you'll see those videos releasing as I get them out. And you can also follow me on Twitter at HackyLessons, and I'll see you guys later on.